So we've got more ahead tonight on Harvey and the swath that continues to carve through Texas and now Louisiana. We've got another live report on that story coming up tonight. I also want to get up to speed, though, on some of what has just shaken loose from the Trump Tower Moscow story that broke this week. That story appears to have shaken loose the news that the president's eldest son, Don Jr., will be testifying to Congress soon. We got first word about that yesterday. We got really interesting development in that story this afternoon. We have a little more on that coming up later on in the show. The Don Jr. testimony plan is apparently already getting messed with by the White House and by the president personally. Again, more on that later. And as Josh Dawsey just referenced when we just had him on about the news that he broke in Politico tonight, that Robert Mueller and the New York State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman are apparently working together on the Paul Manafort part of the Trump-Russia investigation. As Josh Dawsey just mentioned in that interview, there's also news tonight from the Financial Times, from FT, that the mysterious Russian fixer who turned up at that Trump Tower meeting last June, the one who has such an intriguing background in hacking attacks where documents are stolen from people's computer servers and then used for good political reasons. He apparently has been called before Robert Mueller's grand jury to give several hours worth of testimony. That happened on August 11th. We are just learning about it today from FT. So lots going on. But there's something else that I want to stick a flag in here regarding the money part of this, the banks. The bank that was purportedly going to finance Trump Tower Moscow is VTB. VTB is 60.9% owned by and fully controlled by Vladimir Putin, by the Russian government. That alone is a stark detail of the Trump Tower Moscow story that broke this week, right? While Trump was running this strange Republican presidential campaign that involved him praising Putin all the time, we now know he literally was simultaneously pursuing a giant business deal, not just with generic Russian interests, but with Putin, specifically with the Russian government. If VTB was really the lined-up financing for that Trump Tower Moscow deal, then that was the Russian government that was going to finance that deal to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. That makes the reported involvement of VTB Bank in this deal really on the nose important. It's also a very interesting part of the Trump Tower Moscow story because that means that VTB Bank is now the first, second, third, fourth Russian bank to go streaking naked across this Trump-Russia scandal. I mean, once is interesting, two is maybe a fluke, three is surely a coincidence, but four of them? It's VTB Bank now with the Trump Tower Moscow project that the president was apparently pursuing well into his presidential campaign. Before now, it wasn't the VTB Bank, it was the VEB Bank, another gigantic Russian bank whose hand-picked by Putin chief executive met with Jared Kushner during the presidential transition, which Kushner never reported until it made its way into the press. VEB is also the bank that operated a rink of Russian spies out of its New York City office. A spy ring that just happened to target and recruit Trump campaign foreign policy advisor Carter Page. So there's VTB Bank, there's VEB Bank, both sanctioned by the U.S. government for their close links to the Putin regime. Both of those banks inexplicably tied up with Trump campaign figures. There's also Sberbank, another U.S.-sanctioned bank that's close to Putin, which is the bank that decided to hire Donald Trump's top Russia lawyer to work for them on a legal case in New York this spring. Really, of all the guys? And before all that, there was Alfa Bank. Alfa Bank is another big Russian bank also linked with Putin, but Alfa Bank is not sanctioned by the U.S. government. In fact, they're trying to become a business, a big business in the West and in the U.S. To give a little brand distance from their Russian origins, the Western interests of Alfa aren't being called Alpha, they're being called Letter One. Get it? Letter One, Alpha, Letter Two, Beta, right? Even with a new wink and a nod name change, though, Alfa still has a problem because Alfa is the bank that turned up in this still very strange story right before the election. Frank Foer at Slate.com broke the news about large-scale, unexplained computer server interactions between an Alfa Bank server in Russia and a Trump Organization server in Trump Tower. These unexplained, intensive computer server interactions between what appears to be the Trump Organization and Alfa Bank, those happened last summer and fall in the heat of the presidential campaign. We still don't know what they were about. That story broke in late fall, right before the election. Nobody really knew what to make of it at the time. But by this spring, with the Trump-Russia investigations blossoming in Washington like cherry blossoms, that server story, the Alfa Bank thing, took on renewed importance. At least there are more people looking back at that and getting interested in it again. And so Alfa Bank hired itself some lawyers, basically to help clean this thing up. And their efforts included sending threatening lawyer letters to the computer experts who were asked for comment on the story by various reporters who were working on the story. It also included Alfa Bank launching their own independent investigations of these crazy allegations against them. Those independent investigations that Alfa Bank arranged came to the conclusion, you'll be shocked to hear, that Alfa Bank was totally fine. Nothing to see here. Everything's you guys are blowing this so out of proportion. One of those two investigations, I should tell you, didn't even look at what happened during the campaign. They didn't look at anything that happened in calendar year 2016. And here's how the New York Times described the other one. Quote, the investigation of Alfa Bank was, at best, cursory. According to people familiar with the review, its experts were shown metadata for the communications that took place. The content of the messages were not available to the reviewers. Quote, without a much deeper forensic examination, the review could not determine the purpose of the communications between the two servers. The resulting report was carefully hedged, noting that without more study, it could not give the bank a clean bill of health. Nevertheless, the bank used that report to make the case that it had been exonerated. It's a nice trick, right? Somebody turns up something fishy in your behavior. You say, oh, I'm shocked to hear those terrible allegations. I'll look into it. And then you don't at all look into it, but you produce a report and you wave it around and you tell everybody it exonerates you. Nothing to see here. I checked it out. It's fine. The Alfa Bank server story is absolutely still live. First, because we're now aware that Russian banks are coming up over and over and over again when it comes to contacts between Russia and the Trump organization and the Trump campaign, contacts that the Trump side has been keeping secret for months and months now. And now that we're aware of the role of Russian banks in the Trump and potentially the Kushner business dealings that overlap with the campaign, the focus on the banks is getting hotter and hotter. But the Alfa Bank Trump Tower server story is also still live because whatever those communications were during the campaign between this Russian bank and the Trump organization, it's still unexplained all these months later. The cleanup, nothing to see here effort by these lawyers who Alfa Bank hired, it hasn't worked. It has not been a credible cleanup effort. But you know, these guys do have a way of landing on their feet anyway. And now one of the lawyers who Alfa Bank hired to do that cleanup work, one of the lawyers they brought in to oversee one of these so-called investigations of the whole Trump Tower server thing, the one that didn't even look at anything in 2016. One of those lawyers is a man named Brian Benczkowski. And Brian Benczkowski is who the Trump administration has now nominated to lead the criminal division of the U.S. Department of Justice. Criminal division of the U.S. Department of Justice is a big deal. Robert Mueller, the special counsel on the Trump-Russia investigation, he's the former head of the FBI. Yeah, before he was the head of the FBI, he was head of the criminal division at Justice. The current FBI director, Christopher Wray, before he became current director of the FBI, he was head of the criminal division at Justice. Being the head of the criminal division at Justice means you oversee everything from fraud to money laundering, computer crime, narcotics, child exploitation, organized crime, public corruption. Trump has nominated for that job the lawyer who has been working to clean up the Alfa Bank Trump organization server story. And Brian Benczkowski's Alfa Bank connection has been reported before. It was a subject of discussion at his confirmation hearing. That's how we learn that it's not like Alfa Bank has been a long-standing client of his or something. He specifically went right to work on this Alfa Bank clean up the Trump Tower server story. He went to work on that immediately after leaving his work on the Trump transition. But now we know that Russian banks may be at the bullseye of this scandal. Right? The criminal division at the Justice Department is a huge deal. So are Russian banks when it comes to understanding the Trump-Russia scandal. The Senate is about to vote on whether or not those two big deals should be combined by installing the Alfa Bank Trump Tower server cleanup lawyer at the Justice Department in that very critical job. That vote in the Senate on his confirmation is due very soon. So, like I said, stick a flag in that. I'll be right back.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.